Today I released the third of the 12 features I'll be making this year. It's called The Text and it's out now on my main channel. One question several people had leading up to the 12 features is if the movie I shot during the Oscars was gonna count as my feature for March. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized it kind of had to, because this event does take a lot of work. I spent the first week of the month watching a bunch of last year's submissions and getting caught up on that. And then I had to do the award show, and that led me right into doing the movie during the Oscars, and then that's a week of editing and polishing on that movie. So ultimately, if I had another feature in the works, I wouldn't be able to start it until now. And the smarter plan was to just put a lot of work into that Oscar movie and make that special in and of itself. If you don't know, every year I shoot a movie during the Oscars. It's a weird tradition that I started 3 years ago, and it's just become so fun, and I've challenged viewers and filmmakers to try it as well. And every year we've gotten hundreds of submissions, and I just want to thank everyone for making a movie this year. I've already gotten over 100 submissions, and they close tonight at midnight. And it's so exciting to see that, even though I didn't really push it as hard this year, even though I wasn't advertising it as much, it's become a tradition for a lot of people, and everyone's sort of doing it on their own volition at this point. And I'm going to link a playlist below of all those movies. But thank you everyone for participating. It's such a blast to do this each year. But anyways, my movie, I was like, okay, I'm going to shoot a movie in 3 hours. What's a way to make that still feel special? Because I didn't want this to feel like the dud of the 12 features. I was worried, like, if I got to shoot it in 3 hours, it's going to be kind of throwaway, and I don't want it to have that feeling. So I came around to the thought that the best way to do it would be to rehearse and block a one-take, full one-shot movie during those 3 hours that felt planned out and special in its own regard. And it was tons of fun to do. I had a couple rules in my head. I'm like, I don't want to cheat. I don't want to hide any cuts. I want to actually do it in one take, like Russian Ark or Victoria, these movies that are, all actually done in one shot, rather than like Birdman or something, or 1917, which is still cool, but it's like stitched together a bunch of smaller shots. And funnily enough, this movie did have 3 official takes during the Oscars, and we went with the last one, which I've heard is the case for Russian Ark and Victoria too. So I guess these one-shot movies, more times than not, they wind up taking 3 takes and using the 3rd take. But it was a lot of fun. We rented an Airbnb for the weekend, planned the whole story around the Airbnb the first night, spent the whole second day blocking and planning, and then the 3rd day rehearsing, and then ultimately shooting the movie. And I had an idea leading into it about this text, about somebody sending a text, and the fallout after that. And then came the idea to do it in one shot. I'm like, oh, that really works really well, because I feel like the ramping anxiety of when you realized you've sent a stupid text is so relatable and so like imminently painful that it worked for one shot. Because I think the trickiest thing is to convey something that is consistently compelling for an hour or 50 minutes while also being believable that it's happening in that time frame. I think walking that line is tricky, and it was fun to find that line and skirt it well, I feel like. And I think also overcoming the gimmick. It's like, what is the point of the one shot? Like, what is it conveying to us? And I think it is keeping you trapped in that anxiety, keeping you trapped in the real timeness of it, not letting you escape with a cut or having a moment to breathe. And instead you're stuck in these thoughts that you're going through in real time. You're seeing each character process it, and each character sort of butt heads, and the mounting tension between them based around a text message. Because I feel like text is so often portrayed in film sort of haphazardly or lazily, and I think texting is such a major part of our lives, and most of us have sent some really stupid or poorly worded texts that we kick ourselves over, we keep ourselves up about. And I don't think to the extent of the character in this movie, I don't think most people have said something quite that bad, but still, the exaggeration had to be made for comedy's sake. But it was a lot of fun. Everyone was great. Dax, Trent, Kelvin, Ben, and Francesca. Another thing I thought is the easier way to do this would be to get 20 people together and just have tons of little stories going on during the party throughout the house. And the more challenging way is having a more limited cast and trying to figure out how to tell that story with just a couple people and have it be compelling and really hone in and focus on these characters. The movie wound up being 48 minutes long, which is a funny duration. There's sort of a debate online over what's feature length. I usually go with 40 minutes and up. I think 45 and up is sometimes considered feature. Sometimes people push it to 60, but ultimately 40 to 60 is such a strange duration that you don't really see much. I guess in the realm of TV becoming more filmic these days, I guess maybe you're seeing a little more of that duration. But in the world of festivals, it doesn't really exist, and festivals sort of discourage people from making 40 to 60 minutes because there's no way to block it. You know, festivals don't, you either got to put two 40-minute films in like a block, so then, because otherwise it's not worth piling everyone into a theater for 40 minutes and then cleaning everyone out. Maybe you could put a 40-minute film in like 5 shorts or something, but it's just hard to block a 40 to 60-minute movie at a festival, which has for a long time made people kind of veer on either direction of that, either shorter, like 20 minutes, or longer, like feature length, like 60, 90. But I think it's a really fun format to play in, because you're giving yourself more time than, like, say, an episode of TV or like a 20-minute short. So you're developing these characters, but you're not sitting with them long enough to like tell their full story. You're just capturing a moment for these characters. And I think that's a fun balance. It's not going to be as developed as my first 2 movies. It's not going to hit the same like full breadth of emotion in the character arc. And I think the one shot complemented that well too. I think it gave these characters room to breathe and just live in a moment together rather than telling some grander story about their life or giving us all this great context. I had a blast. I think this was going to be an experiment either way because it was shot in 3 hours, and every year I kind of challenge myself to do something else with that limitation. But with the experimental nature of the film, I know I just said I love 4:3 on my last movie, and I didn't think I'd ever do 2:35:1, or maybe I wouldn't. But ultimately, when I was blocking the movie and I was staging it and moving with people, I'm like, this is such like a cinematic, I know that word is somewhat not useful because it's just so vague, but it was already a more like camera-focused, cinematography-focused movie. And the more I looked at the camera, I realized like, okay, 4:3 doesn't quite cut the mood for this. And then 16:9 didn't really like composing in it. And then at 2:35:1, the more I looked at it, I'm like, I like that this is treating a text message with the gravity of like a blockbuster. You know, it's giving it that full frame, really wide thing that you would see like Iron Man given. And it's just giving it to this really painful, hard text message. And lastly, I just want to say that there was a couple of hurdles to figuring this out. I had to figure out a battery system that keeps my camera alive. My camera batteries die pretty fast, so I'll show it in the budget breakdown video, which is going to be pretty small this year. But I had to figure that out, run some tests with that, make sure the camera would record for an hour or so, however long the take wound up being. And that was a fun little thing that worked out. It wound up working out, so that was nice. So yeah, ultimately I just thought this would be a checkpoint month. I'm like, I made 2 big movies my first month. I'm about to dive into 9 in a row, and I was like, maybe I owe myself a month to make a project that was a little smaller scale, to really give myself some time to like gear up and be like, well, there's no stopping between now and the finish line, so maybe this is my water break these next 13 days before I start shooting again in April. And I have a really great movie planned for April. I can't wait for you guys to see what it is. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy the movie. It's a little smaller scale than perhaps some people were expecting, but that just means I'm going to be able to devote my full energy and more of the budget to these full month-long projects I have coming up. So I love you guys. Thank you for helping make this project possible, and I love movies. Bye-bye.